Well, Doom Eternal's been out for a week or so now, and I'm sure everyone's been able to tuck into it and hopefully by this point see all it has to offer. Generally, response from the game seems to be pretty positive, and a lot of the backlash I've been reading online seems to come from people mostly annoyed that it's not exactly the same as Doom 2016. In my first review, I was trying pretty hard to not give away some of the bigger moments in the campaign, and that did kind of limit me in what I was able to talk about. So I thought I'd go back and do another kind of follow-up video, being able to focus more on some of the more spoilery aspects of the game. It should probably go without saying that if you haven't finished the game at this point, you probably shouldn't watch this video unless you want to get some pretty big moments ruined. Don't say I didn't warn you. If you've played Doom Eternal at this point and you're one of those people who really managed to enjoy its gameplay, I think you'll probably agree that this is one intense experience. Once it finds its paces, this is a game with a relentless combat system, one that has you constantly moving around, swapping quickly between weapons and shifting your focus from enemy to enemy, as the battleground changes and your priorities adapt. There's never really been a shooter before that gives the player so many tools to work with and also so many enemies that all have their own unique moves and abilities. As cliche as it is, it really is like a violent game of chess, except you're just one piece against an entire board. The last few levels in this game are just out of control, like the amount of stuff the game throws at you is just insane, and it's almost stressful to play. I reckon there'd be a noticeable spike in my adrenaline levels during some of these more intense moments. I mean, during the final mission, aptly named Final Sin, there's some arenas where you're fighting pretty much everything it seems the engine can handle throwing at you. Tyrant, Mancubus, Archviles, Arachnotrons, and a Marauder thrown in for good measure, and yeah, it kinda seems pretty daunting, but they really do give you all of the tools to deal with this. There's always conveniently placed BFG ammo somewhere or a single crucible charge, you've just got to use it wisely and when you've got absolutely no other option. So it's kind of ironic then that these last few levels, even though they technically throw the most stuff at you, are the easiest levels in the game, even on Nightmare difficulty. So I think if you've gotten to this point and you're still running out of ammo, armor, or health and complaining about how annoying a specific demon is, well, you might have missed the entire point of what the combat's been trying to teach you. And that's what some people seem to take issue with here, is that this is a game that you have to play in a very specific way. There's almost rules and parameters here that you have to follow with the glory kills, the flame belch, and the chainsaw, or else you're gonna have a really bad time. One of the biggest complaints I've been hearing and seeing people say about Doom Eternal is that there's not enough ammo, and that you're forced to use the chainsaw all the time. In Doom 2016, once you'd upgraded your maximum ammo count, it was really easy to just do a loop through a combat arena, literally run around in a circle over and over. With a weapon like the Super Shotgun or the Gauss Gun, you could cheese most of these arenas with not that much difficulty. The lower ammo count in Doom Eternal though, I think is a means to stomp this out, as well as limiting the amount of fuel you get for the chainsaw. So, while you can still just run a loop around arenas, you're going to have to eventually make that dangerous decision of which fodder type you're going to use to replenish your resources, really putting yourself directly in harm's way. I mean, this is not Serious Sam, you can't just run around with your 500 minigun rounds and hold down the left mouse button until everything's dead, and this is by design. Making it so the chainsaw also needs more fuel to just take out even the most basic heavy demons is also trying to keep the player using the chainsaw as a means to get ammo, not as a get out of jail free card. If anything, Doom Eternal's already packed full of get out of jail free cards as it is. Even something as simple as a well-timed dash move can mean the difference between life or death. I mean, eventually you've got the BFG, the charged up Blood Punch and the Crucible to get you out of tight spots, not to mention an Ice Bomb that can cluster freeze a small group of demons and let you retreat. Weapon mods play a huge part in this too, and there are weapon mods that I think are objectively superior to others. So it's never just a clear-cut case of pulling out the shotgun or the heavy cannon and start firing. I've honestly never understood the dislike towards glory kills too, like the amount of people that complain about this thing like it's some kind of game-breaking mechanic that ruins the flow of the combat is just really odd to me. And it seems like an even weirder nitpick for Doom Eternal considering there's like multiple other ways now you can recover health as well. Doom Eternal overall just feels like it's trying to stop the player from settling back into old habits from Doom 2016. And that seems to be, I think, where a lot of the dislike comes from. And look, that's fair enough. I mean, if you buy a sequel to something, you'd kind of expect it to walk the same path. But none of these changes ever feel like a step back, at least not for me personally. The armoured Mancubus is like an enemy that's a tougher version of the normal Mancubus, and along with a couple of other enemy types, this thing's got an AoE attack. So you can't just sit right up its asshole and blast it with the super shotgun like you could in Doom 2016. The Marauders though are the polarizing example of this. They show up a few times in the campaign and their main objective is just to really ruin your day. Now, I won't lie, at first they're definitely a bit of a bitch to deal with, but after figuring out how they work, even on Nightmare difficulty, I can pretty much just breeze through them now without any trouble. I think the trick with them is just to stay in really close so they don't summon in that ghost dog, and then just waiting for that incredibly telegraphed opening when their eyes glow. After that, hit them a couple of times with a ballista or the super shotgun and it's lights out. The only problem though is that these enemies are designed more around a one-on-one situation. When you're just taking on one of these assholes, it works pretty well. However, later in the game though, they start throwing them in with the other standard enemies, and that's where it starts to go to shit. These guys pretty much require your absolute focus, but on the other hand, you've also got to worry about the Cacodemon and the Whiplash too, or else this fight is going to be even tougher. It's never really explained too, though, why these guys are somehow invulnerable to all of your other abilities. Because they hold up what I'm guessing is an Argent energy shield that somehow makes them completely impervious to all of your weapons, almost. But look, it really just does highlight this escalation between Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal's combat. This isn't the same game, and I can understand why that's pissed off a lot of people. But I mean, did you really just want to play the same game as before with nothing changed? I've even seen people complaining that there's no pistol anymore, because yeah, everyone used that pistol so much in Doom 2016, didn't they? That was sarcasm, by the way. Bitch. Visually too, I think some of the last few levels in this campaign are just absolutely stunning, from seeing the Icon of Sin stampeding through the city, to passing through what's literally the Tower of Babel, which was also the final level from Doom's second episode where you fought the original Cyberdemon. The Khan Maker's domain at Urdak is just incredible. From an artistic and technical viewpoint, it's some of the most creative and interesting looking environments, which is in a stark contrast to the violent backdrop of dozens of demons having their appendages removed. Then there's that cinematic, which we have to talk about and which took all of my willpower not to ruin and spoil.
Rips! Yeah, right!
And that's where they confirm that Doomguy and the Slayer are one and the same. Finally. So I guess we can put that fan theory to rest. Yeah, so what happened was after the events in Doom and Doom 64, Doomguy stayed in Hell to continue fighting demons, until the point that he was picked up by the Night Sentinels and trained by them, and then he rose through their ranks.
Welcome home, Great Slayer.
This was just such an awesome moment to witness and finally see acknowledged in-game. And if you're one of those contrarians who actually didn't like that cinematic, where we got to hear him talk for the first time ever, well, just stop playing Doom right now. In fact, stop playing games, because it really does sound like you just fucking hate fun things. These highly narrative-driven moments, though, do juxtapose with the rest of the campaign, where there's often little to no storytelling. A lot of Doom Eternal's plot holes are hidden behind the fact that they're supposed to be covering all of this stuff in future DLC. Things like the Slayer somehow being free at the beginning of the game, and Samuel Hayden being in a state of complete disrepair. There's a huge jump between what's happened at the beginning of this game and the ending of Doom 2016, and there's never really any attempt to bridge that gap. Yes, I understand that story isn't important in a Doom game. We've all seen Carmack's quote that's been taken out of context like a bazillion times. But they've crossed that threshold now where the narrative, like it or not, starts to form a really integral part of the driving force of why you're doing what you're doing. So to overlook some of these crucial and huge plot details just leaves everyone scratching their heads.
My eyes have been opened.
Now, after having finished the game on Nightmare and completed almost of the single player content, it's safe to say the honeymoon period is over, and I've started to notice a few issues with the game, just the kind of things you start to notice the more you play. The buff totems are one of the weirdest additions to the game, so these are these totems that you only ever come across like half a dozen times throughout the campaign, but they make demons stronger and faster until you find and destroy them. It's really just a race to find and destroy them, but you're going to be taking so much damage just trying to get to these things, even if you're dashing and double jumping your balls off. Just kind of a weird mechanic that feels like an undercooked idea that somehow got left in, and I just don't understand the point of them. The more I play around with it too, I really start to feel like the Crucible is a bit of an underwhelming weapon sometimes. This is the sort of Greyskull you get about 2/3 during the game that can one-shot almost every demon type. But it's really odd in how it kind of snaps you into this preset animation, even though that animation does look awesome, and it's not even usable outside of that. The way that it uses ammunition is kind of odd too, because you have to find it on these very preset locations. And even then, you may be getting 1 or 2 charges for it in an entire level. What it means too is that going back and replaying the earlier missions, it has pretty much next to no use because there's no ammo for the damn thing anyway. I think a solution to this might have been to make it function like the Soul Cube in Doom 3. Do you know what I mean? Kill a bunch of demons to charge it up, then it's fully powered. And then you can go on a rampage for like 5 or 10 seconds with the added benefit of it giving you maybe health back per kill. You know, kind of like the Soul Cube. It'd make a lot more sense than just finding those very arcadey looking icons all over the place every 15 or so minutes. Same thing with the Unmaker, which I barely even used outside of just playing with it for curiosity's sake. I mean, look, you've got the BFG, which can pretty much clear out an entire room with a single blast, versus the Unmaker, where you have to pretty much focus on a single demon at a time. I mean, if there's an actual advantage the Unmaker has over the BFG, well, I'm yet to discover it. And really, I think this weapon should have used the same ammo as the Pulse Rifle and the Ballista, like in Doom 64. Moving on to the boss fights, I think the Icon of Sin is an awesome final boss, but I'm still a bit salty that they literally spoiled its reveal in the launch trailer. I don't know who thought that was a good idea, but it's about as dumb as showing off Doomsday in the Batman v Superman trailer. Anyway, the scale of this whole thing is awesome, but it is a bit underwhelming to actually fight. I mean, you're more dealing with the constantly spawning in demons most of the time, as much as you are the Icon itself. The mechanic is just to shoot its armor off, then you repeat the same process again to shoot its flesh off, and then finally kill it. But the area is full of blood punch power-ups, crucible charges, and the constantly trickling in of fodder demons to replenish your resources. I mean, it's sure better than the Icon of Sin fight in Doom 2, which, let's face it, was kinda stupid. But I do wish we could have had a more traditional boss fight against this guy. I haven't really changed my mind on the platforming though, and some of the sections late game are just such a chore. I mean, I can put up with it because it's not that common, but platforming sections that are literally just randomly floating platforms just make no sense to be navigating through. Like I said in one of my other videos, at least the platforming in Doom 2016 felt like a natural progression through the UAC facility. Here it just feels like something out of a 16-bit platformer. Finally, we've got the battle mode, which is Doom Eternal's multiplayer component until Invasion gets released, whenever that is. Now, this thing's actually pretty involved and intricate, so I'll do my best to explain it, right? So, 2 people play as demons, either a Mancubus, Archvile, Revenant, Pain Elemental, or Marauder. The other person plays as the Slayer. As the Slayer, it controls pretty much like the single player. You've got access to all of the same guns, same abilities, weapon mods, but for balancing, some of these aren't active. Demons also have their own loadouts with different abilities and obviously weapons too. The Mancubus has his arm cannons and the flamethrower attack, and the Archvile can throw out fireballs, put up a fire shield and set the ground on fire. The Revenant can use his jetpack to hover around and fire off missiles. The Pain Elemental can fly around the map and throw lost souls like the absolute prick that he is. And of course the Marauder can throw his axe, fire off his shotgun and send out that little ghost doggo. Thing is though, these demon attacks are pretty weak by themselves. I mean, you're not going to be making casuals spit out their herbal tea by killing them over and over as a Marauder. To kind of complement this is the ability to summon in other demons. So during the round you can summon in Hell Knights, Cacodemons, Arachnotrons and so forth, and each playable demon summons in a different type. On top of that, at the end of each round, both sides choose an upgrade, like reduced weapon cooldown or increased health points. Make sense? The thing is though, the balancing for this is just all over the place, starting with the fact that the game has pretty much no matchmaking. And anyone who's half decent at playing the Slayer is just gonna fucking destroy the other team with little to no issue. Doesn't help that as the Slayer, you've got a fully upgraded super shotgun with the fire meat hook from the get-go, and you can safely glory kill or chainsaw weaker demons without taking any damage. The same tricks that work in single player, like fast swapping weapons, abusing the mod cooldowns and stuff like that, still works here, and it works really well. The summoned in demons are really just a bit of a nuisance, so most of the damage comes from the player control demons. And you really have to be working together with another player to coordinate all of these attacks, otherwise you'll just do bugger all. I mean, check this out, the Revenant's rocket barrage attack, which fires out like a bazillion rockets, doesn't even manage to take off the Slayer's entire armor bar in one usage. As a result, you pretty much have to play in a party if you're going to play as the demons here. It just doesn't really work that well without callouts and some degree of teamwork. I think a possible fix to this mode would be to only give upgrades to the people who lose the round, instead of giving upgrades to both sides. Maybe like in Rainbow Six Siege, how each team could choose to block certain operators. Maybe here, each team could choose to block certain abilities, to stop those players from using them as a crutch. As it is, every game is just one extreme or the other. Those few matches that are neck and neck seem few and far between, but when it happens, they are still pretty fun.
Oh.
Victory.
I've just yet to see a balanced match in this mode. It seems you either go up against a Slayer who just absolutely kicks your shit in, or a Slayer who doesn't really worry about resource management and ends up getting killed pretty quick. It's definitely still a fun mode though, and there's unlockables and achievements and all that kind of stuff, but I just honestly can't see people playing this for all that long.
Victory.
Anyway, I think it's going to be the upcoming single-player content in the next few months that's going to be the most interesting to see, not the multiplayer. I'd love to see some kind of prequel mission detailing what's happened between Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. I think that's probably the biggest unanswered question that most players have. Also, who the hell is the Betrayer supposed to be? This guy shows up for one cinematic and then we never hear from him again for the rest of the game. Seems like a wasted opportunity to not explore this guy's past. The inclusion of a co-op mode would also be awesome. I don't know how it would work with sharing resources though, but it would be really fun playing custom-made missions with co-op play in mind. It'd be the perfect chance for them to make some kind of crossover with Quake as well. I mean, just imagine it. Some kind of mode where you played alongside Ranger from Quake. Either way, Doom Eternal has changed the first-person shooter genre and it's never going to be the same again. I think every AAA shooter that comes out after this thing is going to be compared to it, and it's set a standard in terms of the mechanics and combat that'll hopefully raise the bar for years to come. id Software have again secured their position at the forefront of the shooter genre, and I can't wait to see what they do next.